Elderly exemption. Just asked to put it on the agenda, with recommendations, and I will have that on the agenda for the 22nd.
Okay. Do that.
We're gonna keep the 8th almost nothing, just the observation.
He's not here, he's remote though.
We did that last year.
Did we?
I don't think there's anything new.
Okay.
I'll go back and look to see if there's anything new we needed, but I don't believe there is.
Yep.
Because this is the first, it'll still hit us fully this year. The way it fell last year was different, so this will be our first big impact on us this year, which we just, not a lot. No, it won't be a lot, but I mean,
It adds up.
this will probably be, the elderly will probably be, doing my math, probably no more than probably 70, 80 grand of cash in.
Yep.
Not bad. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
I don't think there's anything we need to discuss. No post-meeting this evening, right?
Nope.
I don't see, realtor here, do you?
I got the information that, I just reviewed,
Yes.
and, we are so far ahead this year on trying to figure out how to get there. I'm gonna actually have, you guys are gonna estimate numbers. I'm actually gonna have some hard numbers, I think, probably through this week.
The only thing I was wondering is we got a fixed senior officer.
Yeah, and,
So I was gonna ask you tonight to look into fix that.
I'm working on it.
Is all right? All right, I won't.
I'd rather not.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? And so it's a,
Oh, yeah.
but you know what, you know how we fix this moving forward, and this is my job moving forward, is that when we negotiate contracts, that's when you put those adjustments that do, you forget about those
Yep.
people. So, but yes, I'm on it.
Okay, good.
And I'll have some numbers citywide very, very soon.
Yep.
I was hoping by tonight, but we're close.
Good evening, everyone. The hour being 7 PM on December 26th, Tuesday, December 26th, 2023. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. Before we go any further, though, I would ask Kirk Biotti if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Thank you. We're joined this evening by our recording secretary, Katie Gargano. I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Littman,
Here.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Bogart,
Here by Zoom.
Counselor Felch,
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Present. Staff in attendance tonight is the aforementioned Katie Gargano, city clerk and recording secretary this evening. We have Kirk Biotti, our city manager, and we're also joined by Glenn Smith, our city finance director, and helping us on the IT end right now.
Mr. Mayor, just so the public's aware, we have to take roll call votes because Council Bogart is remote, and just confirming he's by himself in the voting, I guess, is the other thing we need to do, I think.
Councilor Bogart, you are unable to attend tonight's meeting for personal reasons,
Yes.
and appreciate you joining by Zoom. Is there anyone in the room with you?
No, there isn't. I'm by myself.
Thank you, Council. Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. The City Council regular meeting minutes of December 11th, 2023 were distributed to the members of the City Council on December 12th, 2023. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. We have no consent and action items. Agenda item 9, citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to a matter that's not on the agenda, now would be the appropriate time. We're limiting comments to 3 minutes this evening. Welcome.
No tie.
Lousy tie.
Thank you. No tie at all tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the schedule.
Charlie St., Representative Charlie St. Clair,
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Ward 3.
I just want to thank my counselor in Ward 3 for all the work he's done
Thank you, Council.
in my ward, and everything else, while you're sitting at the table. And I do appreciate that, Henry. You've done a lot of work, and so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie, and appreciate all you've done for the city, too.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to matters not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll move right along to council comments this evening. Well, actually, I'll make just a quick couple of comments. Two things. First of all, our next meeting is Monday, January 8th, and that will be when we inaugurate and swear in our new councilors and re-elected councilors. Also, the mayor's inauguration as well. We'll be doing it at 7 p.m. at the Belknap Mill on the 3rd floor. It most certainly is open to the public. Nancy Brown assures me that we will have top-notch refreshments for both before, during, and after. That should pull a crowd in. And certainly it's I think our last opportunity to sit with Councilor Lippman, and that will be a little bittersweet, certainly. So everyone will get a notice of that upcoming meeting, probably via email. Hopefully we'll have a great representation from the city as a whole there, and maybe a couple of special guests as well, so we'll see. But that's on Monday, January 8th. Also, we have Senator Lang's bill, which I know has been discussed, which we had attempted to attach in HB2, which is the trailer bill for the state budget, last session, unsuccessfully. But he has filed it as a standalone bill right now, which is great news. It looks like a bipartisan group of legislators, which is great. I see Representative St. Clair, you co-signed that as well. Thank you very much. That hearing is currently scheduled for January 9th at 1:40 p.m. in State House 103, which is the Finance Committee. So certainly if anyone has an opportunity to go in and testify, or you can sign in online. You can also show up and testify in person if you would like to. But signing in online in support of this bill, I think, would be very helpful. I believe Senator Lang will be introducing this bill as, and not only is it to help infrastructure, but ultimately it really, the infrastructure supports affordable housing. So the city would act as a sort of a conduit for funds for infrastructure. It's contingent upon the sale of the property closing, which was scheduled for no later than January 15th. I think there's maybe a concern about that date right now, but it's kind of unclear. Nonetheless, so any support that the city can get, I think it certainly is a good seed investment, if you will, on behalf of the state through the city to help get some roads and additional infrastructure started anyway. That'll conclude my comments. Look to the councilors for council comments. Councilor Cheney.
I only have two items. I have spoken previously with the manager, and he has worked on, I'm asking him to report at our next meeting or a subsequent meeting in the not-too-distant future with regards to elder exemptions, which I think needs some upgrading. And the other thing I wanted to comment about is again, I spoke to the manager. He's given me a report, but I want to publicly talk about for just a moment the repairs to Tower Hill, and perhaps he can tell us what Old Main.
Yep, so I did meet with our DPW director. The issue right now should not be an issue for the wintertime. It's just the way that the manholes themselves are settling. Shouldn't be an issue for the winter. They're all set for their plowing and travel. They'll reevaluate in the springtime for motorcycles and general traffic as to whether or not those need to be rebuilt or just repaired.
Okay, I thought you told me that they would be dealt with in the,
Well, we'll deal with them in the spring. We'll look at them again and deal with them as needed to, if there's repairs that needed to be made. Yep.
I would.
And to
a-
what extent?
Yeah, I would ask that we be kept advised about what the decision
Yep, we'll do.
is.
Yep.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank
You
you.
have two things you said?
Elder.
Oh, okay, that was the second one. Okay, terrific, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Felch?
Yes, had a request for fireworks on New Year's Eve. I know when we put the ordinance through, that we had said holidays, but New Year's Eve actually isn't officially a holiday, so I don't know if it's something that us as a council could allow.
Can, if I may,
Counselor Susie has a suggestion.
yeah, this is the first we've heard about it from the government operations where the fireworks thing came from. But could we, is there an application or is there more information about this that we could bring to the council?
It was a request we just received. That's why nobody's heard about it, because we just got it. Person wants to do fireworks on New Year's Eve, read the ordinance and said, oh, I don't think that actually applies right now, and asked if there was anything they could do. So that's why Counselor Felch and I have been discussing it, but this was literally within the hour.
So who, what, when, where?
Well, I would suggest that if this, it seems to me that we should be able to have fireworks on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I mean,
It
it's
is a
not
holiday.
officially
So,
a holiday,
i-
but
is
New
there
Year's
some, is
Day.
there a motion we could make right now to amend the ordinance to the extent that even if, that it starts at 6 PM on New Year's Eve? Not that anyone's lighting them off at 6 PM, but starting the holiday at 6 PM on the 31st, continuing through the 1st.
Probably require a public.
So, yeah, okay.
I don't have any, Mayor,
Please.
I don't have any objections. I mean, it is, 3 hours before the holiday.
I
mean,
feel it's
you know-
more the holiday than New Year's Day is.
Oh, I understand that.
Just want to make sure it meets the code,
Right.
okay? That's why I was asking where, and
They're
everything
doing it
else
at
like
midnight,
that.
they're fine, right?
Yep.
But I don't know that we can,
What hours
Just
did we
change it
set
without
for the
public hearing.
fireworks?
Yeah, when we have to have a public
It
hearing.
was
and a-
noon to 10 PM.
When do you want to do them?
He
New
just
Year's
said
Eve.
New Year's Eve.
Noon?
But it's a time?
We didn't really say. He
Yeah,
didn't.
we
It was
didn't have a
he
time.
didn't say.
Where?
I didn't get all the details. I didn't take the call. I was handling
Laconia.
it myself in Laconia.
And we've gotta
I know
wait
it should.
for-
Look, I know this is.
Wait and let it
but-
come back and take them.
It's last minute, but we don't have another council meeting before New Year's Eve.
I don't think I don't think we have to have a public hearing on it just to adopt it. And I don't think they left us enough time. If they want to light them off at midnight, they would technically be on the holiday, right?
Wouldn't fit the time frame, but I think that. I mean, I got the direction. I think it'll be what I can tell the caller. I'll get his number and call him back.
I think we're all
We'll
set.
slap his hand if he does it before midnight.
Okay. Anything else, Counselor Felch?
That's it.
Okay. Counselor Haynes?
Just quickly, Mayor. I think we're indebted to Kurt and especially Nancy Brown and Matt and Amy at Parks and Recreation. The annual luncheon was terrific. It was well-attended.
Yep.
And they did a great job. And everyone else that helped. I mean,
Everyone else that helped, and
Yeah.
certainly they did well over there. Nancy took the lead as she generally does, and
she
does
did a
great job.
fantastic job.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Counselor Bogart, if you're,
He's muted.
I don't have anything, thank you.
any committee reports or liaison reports this evening? Yes.
We have two. This is the Public Works. We met, and there was four issues that we discussed. Two of them are gonna be taken up tonight on the agenda, so there's no sense of discussing it now. The two items that are not on the agenda was the delivering of asbestos to the transfer station. Public Works Director informed us that blown-in insulation, I guess, contains some asbestos. From little amounts from the homeowner, it can be double bagged and received. But as far as a load, as far as landing on the floor of the transfer station as demolition, it would have to have a certification that is free of asbestos, or it would not be received. The second thing we took up was the request of citizens for additional containers. I guess there's been a mixed request for additional containers as far as trash and recycling. We did give the city manager the okay after some discussion to look into that, but with the caveat that there would have to be payment of the containers, the cost of supplying additional containers, and there would have to be an annual disposal fee attached to it. Because if the council remembers, the calculations for solid waste was calculated on the number of containers that we had. So adding additional containers would mean that the taxpayers we're adding additional expense to the solid waste stream. So he's gonna look into that, and the city manager is gonna look into that and report back to us. So those are the two items that are not on the agenda.
Thank you, thank you. Any other liaison reports? Committee reports, seeing none. Move on to agenda item number 19, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. If there's something you'd like to speak to, now would be the appropriate time, so please step forward. We are limiting comments tonight to 3 minutes.
Per topic. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'm just really puzzled about the fireworks that you were just talking about. So you're saying that there are no fireworks to be lit anywhere in the city on New Year's Eve, which is Sunday night?
No, I think if you read the
Oh,
ordinance,
actually, Sunday's in there.
right,
It was allowed on
I would
weekends.
hope that the council finds it in itself to change that, because if you think that it's a good idea to have the police department pulling people off the streets to chase down people lighting fireworks, which will start as soon as it gets dark, I can assure you that, because that's been going on as long as Class C fireworks have been legal. I mean, it just makes no sense for somebody to call the police department to complain about fireworks, have them take a cruiser off, whether it's patrolling the streets for DWI or everything else that they have to do, to be answering those calls. They're like nuisance calls, and I don't think we have the staff to do it. I don't think the department has the staff to do that. So I would hope you would revisit that quickly, because it just makes no sense at all. None. I can't imagine people not expecting to hear fireworks New Year's Eve, no matter what day of the week it is. That's just that. But what I had planned to ask about is the Martin Luther Day King Parade. I'm in favor of it. I think it's great, but I would hope that somebody gets word out to whoever puts the barricades up that day of the parade, that they don't start throwing them up and banning parking on Main Street at 10 o'clock in the morning, which has happened on occasion for parades. I think the parade, and Pat can speak to that, I think the parade is 4 to 5 or something like that. So I hope it's closer to the actual parade when they start doing all that stuff. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative St. Clair. Welcome, Reverend.
Hi, good evening. It's good to see everybody. I'm here for the Human Relations Committee, and I'm in charge of the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration.
So this is Reverend Judith Wright, just for the record, and from the Unitarian Universalist
Right, and also
Society.
live here in Laconia.
Yes.
So I'm asking tonight for a temporary traffic order pending the special events approval at the meeting on January 3rd for this event. And the traffic order is for the march, which Charlie just talked about. And you have a map of I've been told you have the map.
Yes.
And so the celebration is from 1 to 4, and then the march will be after that for people volunteering who want to march. It'll be from gather in front of the Colonial, and we'll march north up Main Street to the entrance of the central parking lot, march through the parking lot to Pleasant Street, march south on Pleasant Street to Main Street, and march north to the Colonial Theater. Now, 5 of us walked this, we walked the whole thing just to see how much time it would take. It took us 8 minutes. So we figured that this will probably be more normal, probably around a half hour at the most, depending on how many people decide to march. So we just need your approval for this tonight, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Wright. Anyone else like to comment on current agenda items? Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, Patrick Wood, Ward 1. I also would like to thank Henry. He's no longer my counselor since I'm no longer in Ward 3, but I was for a long time. And so thank you, Henry, for all you've done for the city, as well as Ward 3. On the agenda is something about the banner and flag policy, or flag and banner policy. And I just want to say, on behalf of the Human Relations Committee, that I really appreciate the efforts that Chair Susi and Councilor Cheney and Councilor Felch have put in on this effort. It's been a very collaborative effort, and I think it's produced a proposal that will be helpful for the city and beneficial going forward in different things. So just a thank you to all 3 of you for your efforts, and hopefully when you get a chance, the rest of you, to take a look at it, you'll agree that it provides something positive for the city. So, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Anyone else like to speak to matters currently on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll look to the city manager for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple documents included in your packet tonight. I'm just going to hit the highlights of the new information that's on the Laconia project update. Is the first piece of information you have. Most of the road projects are completed for this year. They're just working on what touch-ups they can do during the winter, and they'll finish up anything in the spring. We have started working on our estimated new road repairs, both the more routine repairs and then the bigger ones, the more in-depth projects that we talked about as part of the additional bonding money that we did for the infrastructure. So those are being worked on now. And certainly we'll continue to have communications with you guys in each of your wards on if the specific highlighted areas that you've identified, and then what our Public Works Director has as well. Gonna skip all the way towards the end of page 2. They're still working on the Elm Street project, finalizing what the plans look like for the multi-use trail that'll go up the west side of Elm Street. It's going to include a lot more work. It's going to include some drainage work. So there's a lot going on in there, and they're still working with our engineers as well as DOT on that. On page 3, the Weirs TIF district has asked where we stand with the public dock reconfiguration. Just as an update on that, there was money that was in a grant to do some work on that, and we were going to finalize that with capital. That was a couple of years ago now. The skyrocketing price of of doing that work more than doubled the project. The grant only covered so much. So we're trying to figure out now, first of all, one, can we add more money to the grant, which is a possibility, but we're not sure. The second piece would be, how would that fit into additional capital improvement money if we were to put that as part of our CIP projects? And, so that's in our presentation, our submission that our Public Works Director has turned in to take a look at, and that's being evaluated. I know I'm looking at Councilor Felch because it hits Councilor Felch and Councilor Cheney's ward. So we are working on that. I don't know what the numbers are going to look like for it, but it is on our radar. We are working on setting up the Weirs Beach Restoration meeting. I know we picked a horrible time during the holidays to go back and forth to trying to set this up, but we have been in contact with DES on that, and it was suggested that City Manager Myers was included in the conversation. Once we get the date locked down, we're gonna work with him as well on that and have that discussion. I skimmed that really quickly, but that's just the highlights of the, projects update.
Counselor Littman.
So on the Weirs Beach Restoration Act, in your report, you talk about this is the only thing that we can do absent wetlands permit. And you know, I had suggested that, you know, this has lagged for a long time just because of that issue, that at some point, if the council really wants to see this done, I think we need some professional technical support to navigate the wetlands permit area.
And that's part of the conversation with DES, and we're just trying to get the date locked down on that, and hopefully they can help us with that direction on that.
And I guess the other thing, just on the potential closing of the project, the state sale of the property, state school property. I do just want to suggest that part of the project update ought to be about, in the future, should be about what technical support we're going to have to help. This is an enormous project if it effectively goes forward, and I know that the council that we've had working with us previously worked on the project in Salem, New Hampshire, if my understanding is correct about that. Our legal counsel on this.
The part of the state school properties team, legal, they worked on the Salem project.
Right. And they're our counsel, or no?
No, they're not our council, they're their council.
So I do think that that's all the more reason I think we need to have someone on our side then who is knowledgeable in this space and not doing it for the first time. If they've got someone who's already been through it, advocating on the, if you will, the project proponents side, I think the council needs to have, and the manager has to have a good resource there, as well as in the planning area. You know, we've had turnover in the planning department. Now, 2 people, just because of different factors beyond typical turnover. So I do really think we need to, part of our project is sort of building up our team here. In fact, it's gonna close, whether it's January or February or whenever, that it does close, that we have a team on board pretty quickly, so we're not behind the 8 ball in terms of the planning process.
So, if I hear you correctly, I think it's good guidance, Counselor Littman. Are you suggesting that maybe we have someone besides the Mitchell Group, who may have represented maybe the town of Salem, you know, because they've dealt with a similar project? Maybe that's a place to start a conversation?
Yeah, I think you know, the project proponent is gonna, you know, rightfully in the market is gonna try to get the best deal for themselves, and I think the city needs to be, you know, not adversarial, but well informed in terms of what we're allowing for and what we're not allowing for. And then I think when it gets to the planning area, the same is true there, that, you know, we don't want to get things tied up on procedural matters. You know, this is a big deal, and I think it's probably worth, you know, carrying as a project here, in terms of our team.
Counselor Cheney.
I would like to very strongly support Councilor Lippman's comments. I think, with all due respect to our council, this is different than the run-of-the-mill legal issues for a city or a town. I hope we can I would hope we could direct the manager to seek out a law firm who specializes in this field, because I don't have a lot of faith that they're gonna come in here and shower us with funds to take care of the problems that may be created. I'd like somebody who's seen it happen before, representing us. So that's my.
Counselor Susie.
If we need, I strongly agree with Councilor Lippman and Councilor Cheney, but I also like to see, do we need a motion to move that ahead, to instruct the manager to do this, and also at the same time, ask the manager and, well, I guess maybe it's too early for that, to investigate with finance director you know, funding for that. It comes out of our, whether it's legal or whether it comes from, but we should be able to find some funds to do that. But I would strongly ask a motion to ask the city manager to move ahead and either speak to that firm in Salem or find somebody else who has had that.
Well, the Salem firm has represented the folks up at the state school.
But find somebody who's,
I think
okay,
we need to find.
even if we talk to some of the people that came out of the Peas operation, something like that.
So I think perhaps a motion before we get to finding funds, I think maybe it's just the initial steps, a motion to have the city manager begin a process of due diligence
Search.
to identify maybe a law firm initially here that would represent the city as we go forward. I think if you complete your due diligence and come back and have a couple of options for us with approximations of what it would cost to hire them, then we can sort of make the move to find the funds and allocate the funds and vote for the funds. But I think that motion right now, maybe just to take these initial steps, would that be okay?
Yes, sir.
Good. All right. Is there a motion, Counselor Susie made the motion, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on the motion that we have on the floor right now?
Just make sure the clerk has the motion if she can sort of summarize it.
To have the city manager begin a process of due diligence to locate a law firm that can represent the city and to include the costs.
To represent the city, certainly during the initial phases of the state school project.
I was gonna go back and listen to it after.
Go ahead.
I think the motion's been seconded, right?
Yes.
So just I think we ought to, a friendly amendment to that would be not just the law firm, but also the planning support
Yes.
to do both pieces.
Yeah,
And,
because that's gonna be entwined all together.
yeah, and then, I think the budget process will probably allow us, by the time this thing gets
Yeah, right,
rolling, to be able to put it in the budget process, most of this expense.
Okay? Katie, does that
Yes.
make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Go right ahead, Counselor Susie.
Just, Mr. Manager, just, is this all clear with you? or
Yeah,
is there
no,
any
I-
changes you-
Yep, I'm clear.
Okay.
Should we amend
Thank
should we amend the motion to include the planning?
Yes, you should.
So,
I had that as
it's a friend,
That's part of it.
amended by you.
Okay, and we need
motion
some,
to
I'll
amend.
second that amendment.
Right.
So would you like to vote on the amendment or the whole motion as amended?
we have to do.
The whole motion is amended, probably.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so,
Roll call.
Roll call, yes.
all right, so I'd ask the clerk, if there's no further discussion, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion as amended.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes?
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes,
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes,
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you. Are you still in the midst of your report?
I am.
think you are, yes.
The second document that you have is the monthly economic development report. Front page has our unemployment rate, which is a little above the state, but pretty much in line with what we normally see. And on the second page is our annualized CPI number, which is a part of the tax cap, which is at 4.2%. And, with only 1 month left to go, we could anticipate it'll be just, right around that, just over 4%. So that's one of our numbers that we're using as we start to formulate our budget numbers for next year. Also included in my report this month is I was asked 2 different topics to at least bring up, and both of them, all I'm saying on is that they're still being worked on. I was asked to look at impact fees. One was to see if they're being assessed evenly and correctly as far as who gets waivers and who does not. Would have worked with the planning director, but unfortunately we had that vacancy now. So I've started working on some of it, and when the new planning director comes in, we'll have them take a look at that. So we are working on that. The second question that I was asked was to review the 79E RSA that we put out, with the question being, is it transferable amongst owners? I have that's still being investigated, and I have the question out, and But I was asked to bring that up publicly, so I want to make sure that I just let people know that I'm looking into it.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Any follow-up for the city manager? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 21 under new business. Item 21A, which is a request to set the polling hours for the state presidential primary election being held on January 23rd, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Per RSA 659:4, at all state elections in towns and cities, the polls shall open not later than 11 o'clock in the morning and shall not close earlier than 7 o'clock in the evening. In cities, the city council shall determine the polling hours no later than 30 days prior to a state election. I think we're up against that, aren't we?
Yes, a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yes. The city clerk is requesting that a motion would be made to move to approve the polling hours for the state presidential primary election being held on January 23rd, 2024, respectively, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this? Yes.
Just like to reinforce, this is when we've typically held the presidential primary, the hours, so this isn't new for historical purposes.
Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes?
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Item number 21B, which is the appointment of Mark Haynes as Selectman for Ward 4. Per Laconia City Charter, Section 2.05, all vacancies in the office of Moderator, Ward Clerk, or Selectman shall be filled by the City Council. The regular appointment will be valid until the end of December 2025, after the city election in November 2025. This is, a request was submitted by the city clerk, Katie Gargano. Right now, looking for a motion to move to appoint Mark Haynes as Selectman for Ward 4 with a term expiring at the end of December 2025. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes, and thank you, Counselor Haynes. Item number 21C, which is, we heard some testimony on this evening, it's a temporary traffic order, 2023-18, Martin Luther King Solidarity March, January 14, 2024. Laconia Human Relations Martin Luther King Jr. Subcommittee is holding a Martin Luther King celebration event at the Colonial Theater on January 14th. This event will feature interactive artistic music and speakers. At the conclusion of the event at 4 p.m., there will be a solidarity march in the downtown area, as outlined on the attached temporary traffic order and as shown on the attached map. Martin Luther King Subcommittee is requesting a waiver of city fees associated with the Solidarity March. The Special Events Review Committee will be addressing this request at the January 3rd, 2024 meeting. The staff does recommend approval of this request as presented, pending Special Events Review Committee approval. Right now, I'll be looking for a motion to move to approve temporary traffic order 2023-18 for the Martin Luther King Solidarity March to be held on January 14, 2024, pending Special Events Review Committee approval, and to waive city fees associated with this event. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this? Counselor Cheney.
Mr. Mayor, I do think the comments that were made with regards to the hours the streets will be closed are legitimate, and I hope we can include in this that the closure of Main Street and these side streets is kept to a minimum. Do we know what time the parade is?
4 to 5 p.m.
4 to 5, so can we add, streets can be closed at 3:45 and opened at 5:15?
Friendly.
Is that all right?
You-
Great.
Yeah, I think they plan on opening them as soon as the parade, the march.
And
is
that's
over.
even better.
Yeah.
But I'd hate to see
It says
the,
that in the paperwork.
but I'd like the motion to say they can't close them down to more than 15 minutes before the parade starts.
All right, so that's a So as part of this motion, it seems to me, that's a friendly amendment to the motion made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion on that? I think one question, I just want to make sure, does the motion and the amendment make sense? Is it clear to?
It does, and what we'll end up doing is the same way we do any of the other parades that are, like the schools doing stuff, it's gonna be closed only when it has to be and then reopened right away, so the time will be very limited, that has to be closed.
Okay. I'd also ask that the city contact the businesses on the parade route to let them know what's happening. And the sooner we do that, the better, perhaps by flyer or email or personal stop by and say hello, personal touch. Would be appreciated. The last thing we want to do is surprise people with this.
Take care of that. Yep.
All right, so the motion as amended is on the table. If there's no further discussion, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes?
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you, counselors. Go right ahead.
Just an observation, it's on the 14th, which is Sunday,
Sunday.
so there's not gonna be much
I understand.
activity, but just,
Item number 21D, request by Waste Management to amend the transfer station operating agreement due to the costs associated with processing large quantities of recycling. I trust that the council has gone over the document that was in your packet. This is a motion authorizing the city manager to begin negotiations with Waste Management to establish a recycling fee for bulk recycling brought to the transfer station. So we see there certainly is a need for this based on, but we're not authorizing anything right now. It's just for you to commence the negotiations. We do need to, go right ahead.
I just wonder if you can explain a little bit better what's going on than this in here.
The transfer station's receiving a lot more recycling in total tonnage than they were expecting, and a lot of that appears to be coming from businesses, not necessarily the household recycling that's coming up. It's the larger quantities when, if you have a dumpster but no recycling, you're mandated to either have a recycling dumpster for your business or bring them up yourself. And Waste Management feels that that's where the large increase of tonnage is coming from, and it's more expensive to get rid of the recycling. So that's where this is coming from, and they want to reopen the negotiations to discuss that.
So I guess before we had a couple of spots in the city where people could drop off recycling. So I guess I'm trying to understand, what's been the boom in recycling? Is it a function of us going to the system that we have now?
Yes. Yeah, that's what it appears to be.
An unanticipated cost of
Yeah,
that?
that's what it appears to be. Yep.
It's truckloads, not just a barrel full.
Okay, any further questions? Yes, go
Just
right
that was one of the items that came up with the Public Works, and we did concur with that, to give the city managers start to negotiate and start looking at that.
So right now, looking for a motion to move that the council authorizes the city manager to begin negotiations with Waste Management to establish a recycling fee for bulk recycling brought to the transfer station. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this? Councilor,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
go right ahead, Councilor Bogart.
I just have a question. Is this fee that we're gonna increase, is that what the customer would be paying? Or is that what the city pays Waste Management?
City pays Waste Management.
That'll be what the city pays Waste Management.
And does the city, if I may have a
Sure.
follow-up question, please?
Sure.
Do we charge the customer for bringing those recyclables?
At this point, no.
But that's what,
But that's part of what,
Right, that-
you know, one more thing that we're looking into is when we have these conversations.
So if I may ask to follow up?
Yeah, go
And-
right
and
ahead.
If I can just not correct myself, but clarify one piece. The intent still would not be to, you know, the homeowner who has a handful of recyclable materials, bringing them up to the transfer station. That's not what this was intended on. This is intended on looking at the large bulk, recycling amounts, as Council Felch said, the truckloads of recyclable materials.
That's correct. And what I was curious about, because this is a commercial type entity, and are we subsidizing the commercial portion of this business by the taxpayers paying for the tonnage that would go out versus the business paying the city their portion?
The defining commercial, it's not necessarily because it's a large hauler of recyclables, but it may be a business specific that has inherently by their nature a large amount of recyclables.
And that would be just the city?
It would be restaurants, it would be, you know, maybe you have a business that, you know, everything,
Responsible for paying it?
the city.
Who's
The city as of right now.
But as part of the negotiation, are we looking at changing who pays?
Yes, sir. That's one of the things that the Public Works Subcommittee has asked me to talk about when we're in these talks, is about a user fee cost for that as well, for those large recyclable users.
Thank you.
Counselor Littman.
So 22B is about transfer fees. Is it, the committee's not yet ready to propose a number for this? Okay, so that's,
Just under,
that will be a further amendment
Yes.
of that item. So then I guess my question is, in terms of your negotiations, over time, we've seen recyclables be worth something in terms of the market versus not. So I guess, you know, just in terms of your negotiation, it ought to be tied to the price of the commodity as to whether it's a, you know, particularly if you're dealing with corrugated cardboard, I still think is a profitable item for them to handle.
Yeah, I'll include that. Thank you.
but the businesses can still take the cardboard to
Messer Street.
Messer Street.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's gonna cost, yeah, there's no cost, no fee for that.
Right.
It's just the transfer station.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes,
Counselor Haynes?
Yes,
Counselor Bogart?
Yes,
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 21E, request to schedule 2 public hearings for the Community Development Finance Authority. And looking to request those hearings, those 2 public hearings on January 22nd, 2024, during the regular city council meeting. The first public hearing is regarding a proposed application for the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $350,000 in CDBG public facility funds. Of the grants, up to $25,000 will be retained by the city for administrative, labor, compliance costs associated with the project. Up to $330,000 of the funds will be sub-granted to the Boys and Girls Club of Central New Hampshire for improvements, including a handicap accessibility to the Lakes Region Early Learning Center playground on 22 Stafford Street. Majority of the children at LRELC are from low and moderate income households. The second public hearing is going to regards the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the Lakes Region Early Learning Center Playground Improvement Project. As you may be familiar, community CDBG funds are available to municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500,000 is annually available for economic development projects, $500 for housing, $500 for public facility projects, and $350 in emergency funds, and up to $25,000 per planning study grant. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. There's no fiscal impact, there's no matching funds associated with that, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, thank you. So, we have two proposed motions here. The first proposed motion, looking to, which is to schedule a public hearing on January 22nd, 2024, during the regular city council meeting regarding a proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $350,000 in CDBG public facility funds. Of the grants, as I indicated, $25,000 will be retained by the city for administrative labor compliance costs associated with the project. Up to $330,000 of the funds will be sub-granted to the Boys and Girls Club of Central New Hampshire for improvements, including handicap accessibility, to the Lakes Region Early Learning Center playground on Stafford Street. As I indicated earlier, the majority of children at the LRELC are from low and moderate income households.
So moved.
Counselor Felch, okay, seconded by Counselor Susie. Are there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The second motion is looking to move to schedule a public hearing on January 22nd, 2024, during the regular city council meeting regarding the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the Lakes Region Early Learning Center Playground Improvement Project. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
There's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to agenda item 22, under unfinished business, we have a matter that has been tabled, which is the City of Laconia flag policy.
I move to take it off the table.
Counselor Felch has made a motion to take it off the table, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
No.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
No.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
That's 4 votes in the affirmative, 2 in opposition. That motion passes. The item is off the table right now. City manager has handed out Laconia flag and banner display policy for city-owned property. This is in its draft form. I believe Attorney Patrick Wood indicated that he had been in discussions with City Ordinance Committee and had worked on this. How would you like to proceed with this? I'll look to some leadership here from. Go right ahead.
Chairman of that committee, Mr. Mayor, we worked hard with, you know, as you said, Attorney Wood and all, and at the last council meeting, we passed these out for council comments, and so each of the councilors could do this. I'd like to ask if there's any other councilors that want to speak up on this policy now, at this time.
I'll look to my councilors. We'll start with Councilor Littman.
I appreciate all the work that's gone into the policy. In the end, I can't support it. And the reason is that our society is very polarized at this point, and increasingly so. And I think in terms of the reason that this came forward first was around the LGBTQ Pride Month, but if you've just been watching on what's going on in the country regarding different policies on flags, there's been a lot of problems, particularly with different groups having pretty strong opinions and flying flags that have significance to them. And I have been against this, not against what people can do personally on their property and not against any group, but I think that the city would be better, and the city council would be better positioned to just leave our flags policy to the United States flag, the flag of the state, and the flag for POWs, which I think there's a consensus opinion around. When you start to fly other flags, you start to really tap into the polarization that's in society, and I think I understand the reasons that individual groups want to have, but I think once we open this gate, and I think we've seen it in some other towns that have adopted these policies where they end up in a situation, not so much on the policy that was raised to come here, but on, just be pretty frank about it with the Middle East policies that are going on right now and some of the anti-Semitism and such that's going on, that I think that and in other areas that there are flags by various groups that just, I think, would be destructive to the social fabric of our community, and that's why I'm going to continue to vote against it, and I understand that this is my last chance to vote on it, and it may be a different council might think differently about it, but that's my position, and it's not because I'm against any group or for equal rights or anything to that effect. I just think that flags have a certain meaning, and so do banners for that matter, and I think we're better off leaving that alone. That's all I had to say on it. I understand if people can see it differently.
Counselor Cheney.
If I might ask the counselor a question or two, it's my understanding that flagpoles and city buildings are only those flags you listed. So we're talking about light poles and those sorts of things that this, let me finish, Henry, that this policy may affect. The other question I have is, you didn't mention banners. I mean, no, he didn't.
I did at the end.
But I guess what I'm saying is, are you suggesting the only banners could be the American flag, the state flag?
No, I'm suggesting that we not get into the banner or flag waving policies and just stick to the governmental buildings the way they are, and not to, because I think the banners are going to cause as much or greater problem than even the flags in terms of what's going on in society today. And I'm very concerned about, once you accommodate one group, there's very good reasons why another group should be accommodated. And they don't have to do anything with the reason that this policy came before us. It could be for other reasons. And I'm really concerned about, the social fabric of our community and I understand that people have a right to fly whatever they like, banner or flag on their property, but I think when it's government-owned, that we should limit it to what it is and not expand that.
Right ahead.
Forgive me, but I'm kind of confused what the difference is between having a policy that basically says it's up to the city council and not having a policy at all.
Well, I think that if there was a policy that the council ultimately adopts, subsequent to tonight, it would be that we have the flag poles on, be at our schools or on the city hall, and that we limit it to those things where the social fabric's not going to be frayed by potentially various interest groups that could fit within any of the definitional things in here that leave exposure to, I think, the fraying of the fabric. I mean, that's my take of it, and I can understand you can see it differently, and I'm not.
Well, the policy still says it has to be approved by the city council,
Yeah.
so I don't know what the difference is between
because the
a
council's
policy and no policy.
the council's going to be put in a position where you accept one, and then you're going to, what is the criteria that you're going to, it's not just because you feel like you want to do it, it's,
Somebody can still bring it to us. It's still gonna be up to us, no matter what, whether we have a policy or not.
legally, you're gonna find yourself, the city's gonna end up spending money on legal fees defending a policy, and that's, I think, and it's a distraction to the important work that I think has to happen around the council. As I said, I'm not gonna vote for the policy tonight, and, that's my conscience in terms of, and I'm sharing with you why, and I understand people may feel differently. But just from my perspective, in the end, that opening up to different social groups, banners, and interest groups and advocacy groups, it just is, once you open it up, and I've seen it in the town of North Andover, which is one of the communities, or Andover, where, they had a policy that, they could not say no to, and it offended a lot of people in the community and was divisive. I just don't think that we should go there. And I think other people can see it differently, but I feel strongly about it, and, but I understand I'm only one vote.
I just have a question for clarification. Would your opposition also extend to some of the high school art classes that hang banners on the poles downtown? Would it just eliminate any banner hanging at all, or are you willing to make exception for artwork from local artists?
Yeah, I think in terms of the part that, I think that's part of what the city itself is in terms of schoolwork and things like that. That does not trouble me. It's when we start to, look at different, definitional groups that could, we have an African American History Month, that if someone then wants to do something, or and then one of the other ones where they want to take an opposition view to the recognition of that, it ends up causing.
Sure, but I think the difference in that, if I can just interrupt you, that's recognized by the federal government. That African American history. I don't think neo-Nazis are recognized to have a day or a week or a month of, special recognition. So I think, I know that's sort of an easy decision for us to make if it were to be presented. On the other hand, I'm just trying to get a better understanding.
Yeah, the federal observance is, that makes it a little bit easier, but there again, I think once you open it up, you're gonna face pressures on other things. And
would it also, when we think about banners on poles, but you touched on city-owned property. I think of Christmas trees at Rotary Park. Would it extend so far? Because certainly Christmas and Christianity can be particularly divisive to some groups. Would it also go that far that we wouldn't have Christmas trees anymore there?
I'm not advocating for that.
But it fits within the parameters of what you're concerned about, which is publicly owned property with something that may tear at the fabric of people who are not Christian, don't celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, I think generally, again, in the news, there's been some divisiveness in some communities around the pagan culture and, giving equal representation with that.
So I guess that you're to be consistent with your logic there, then there should be no Christmas trees there, because if the pagan culture decides they want to come in and have Rotary Park next year, that would clearly tear at the fabric of the community, a predominantly Christian community here.
Yeah. Again, I think, I have my thoughts on it, and I think that, I may be wrong, but I'm just sharing that.
Thank you, and I respect those. I just wanted to get a better understanding. Yes, Councilor Felch.
Yeah, I wanted to say that as well. I respect your opinion. I don't agree with it. But I also want to say that the Human Relations Committee and our committee as well have worked on this for several meetings. And as far as I was concerned, all of us on our committee and Human Relations agreed that this was a good policy to have.
I'm not sure we agreed totally that this was, I thought we agreed that it needed some.
The changes have been put in here.
Well, but there's some more changes, for me at least. We were sent it at the last meeting to review and consider some changes. I do have some changes. I'm not quite as strong as Henry is about this. I worry that if we don't put a policy in place we may end up with what he's worried about.
Right.
That's something he and I'll just have to disagree about. But there are several things in here that after I reviewed it, I thought I was coming tonight to say, what about this sentence, or what about this comma? So I just want to be clear, from my perspective at least, what the committee agreed to was that this was a good document to work from, and that we should have a chance tonight to work on it. That was my feeling. Bob, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
And I took it off the table so we could have discussion.
Yep,
but-
thank you.
Counselor Bogart?
Mr. Mayor, if I could put an input on two sections of this, if it so chooses to continue. As I had the opportunity to attend the committee meetings, and it was discussed that certain parameters for the banners should be displayed. And under section 2 of location, the policy governor governs and is limited to the flying of flags and banners on external city-owned property, which for the purpose of this policy includes flagpoles and light poles. And what was extremely discussed was that no building would be included, and the only thing that was gonna be discussed was the banners being placed on the light poles. And as I'm reading section 2 of the location, it's indicating all of the property, including flagpoles and light poles. And therefore, I don't think that's kind of meeting it. It's leaving open all the buildings, the school buildings, the city hall, all our parks and rec buildings and stuff are being open for the display of banners. And I do not think that's what was discussed in the committee meeting at all.
Patrick?
And the second part, if
Go
I
ahead.
may, was down on section 8 of the fee, and the very
doesn't have
first
this
word
copy.
should be extracted out, if, because it's gonna cost the city to put anybody's outside organization, banners up, and so it's not if, there should not be any way for them to not have to pay the fees that it costs the city and the taxpayers in the process of putting up these banners and stuff. In which case, I'll also question the fact that if we allow the public to put these things up on their own, then it's leaving, the city in a precarious situation if this outside organization hurts themselves while installing something like this on public property.
He doesn't have the updated copy, I don't believe.
He doesn't have this copy.
Right.
Okay.
That's in there.
Thank you, Counselor
No,
Bogart.
this copy has the if.
I would, Patrick, a couple of questions came up there about the crafting of this. Did you shed a little light on it from your perspective?
I can, thank you. And Counselor Bogart, I'm sorry you do not have the most current version that we did send to the committee and to the city manager. You're absolutely correct that the section 2 was amended, and it is, now it's very clear that city-owned property includes not only the streets, sidewalks, light poles, but also flag poles and buildings. So they're all encompassed in the revised draft of the policy,
22, an
which
updated
was
one there.
drafted on December 1, and so that was, you're correct, Councilor Bogart, that was clearly discussed, and that change was made in the policy.
Patrick, just on section 2, I'm reading, quote, "This policy governs and is limited to the flying of flags or banners on city-owned property as defined in this policy," period.
Correct.
Close quote.
And then in section 3, city-owned property is defined,
Okay,
okay?
got it. Yep.
And I would also note in section 6, there's a clear indication that the banner or banners, which we're only talking about needing approval, the flags or flag poles and anything on buildings are strictly off limits for anything other than the American flag, state flag, New Hampshire POW, MIA flags, and the City of Laconia flags. But the banner or banners must symbolize mission statements of the Human Relations Committee, and a report of their review would be forwarded to the city manager. So we're not talking about a blanket situation where anyone can come in and apply for the banner. This is something that is strictly controlled and regulated and to be in keeping with the mission statement of the Human Relations Committee. So it isn't something that's wide open and unregulated.
Well, and it also doesn't suggest that the Human Relations Committee's report is mandatory on the manager's decision.
Well, the city manager may make the decision himself, but if it's something other than that, it goes to the committee and they report.
They report, but that's not restrictive. It
Oh, no,
doesn't-
right.
Okay.
Wait a minute, the Human
It's
Relations Committee
advisory, is that correct?
It's an advisory
It's
opinion,
advisory.
that's all it is.
doesn't make the decision,
I'm sorry?
That's correct.
does not make the decision.
It is advisory only.
Okay. Now, can I go back to my original that I was, okay? I just want to get a clarification of what Council Lippman was asking, okay? Just to get clarification, make it real clear. What Council Lippman is proposing is that we have a policy that says any city-owned property, the city owns it, controls it like a school building or anything else like that, are the only places that the flags, banners, anything can be flown, but it has to be either the US flag, the state flag, the city flag, or the POW flag, or banner. That's it. Nothing else on any city-owned property unless approved by the city council, or that's it.
My advocacy is not to open this up to anything more, just because as much as the policy here, whether it would stand up to test of law, if it fails, then we're in a lot of trouble, in my mind, in terms of the social fabric of our community. So I'm saying strictly, to leave well enough alone in the sense of, where the community at large is not going to be polarized on those items. And
But Henry, if we have no policy,
I'm not advocating no policy, I'm advocating a strict policy,
okay,
which would be that we would limit it to that. And I think, if it means foregoing some other things, I think in the long run, we'll be better off, because I do feel like there are movements afloat to make these situations difficult.
and I think those should be controlled by the council. But for instance, to suggest no banners, I mean, Motorcycle Week banner, the Heart Fund, 5K race, those sorts of things.
But they're hanging on private property poles.
Yes.
No, they're not.
No, not all of them.
No, they're not.
We have signs up at the Weirs that have been put up by the Weirs Action Committee for Motorcycle Week and for the history of
Well, there's one over here.
Weirs. There's banners down in the,
Yep.
downtown Laconia right now, hanging from the street signs, from the light poles. Where's
Well,
that
and
leave all
there's-
the,
The poles down on Court Street.
That's
Yeah.
the telephone poles, if I remember right.
No, those
That's
are,
city,
Oh, separate poles. We put those up.
yes.
is that
Those are
city-owned
city
property?
poles.
Yeah. So then, in the interest of that, then I would suggest that if it's a city-sponsored event, like whether it be art or whether it be Motorcycle Week, that you could allow for that, but I do think that, there's a train coming at us right now in terms of what's going on in society, and just I'm concerned about it, honestly.
We really tried hard to,
And I commend the group for working on what they've worked on, and, you know, again, I'm more fearful about the social fabric that, in terms of what the consequences are, rather than accommodating. You know, it's a balancing thing from my standpoint, and for now, I think we'd be better off being more conservative than liberal in terms of what we choose to do.
If I may.
Mr. Mayor?
Just a second, go right ahead, Counselor Haynes.
Under section 3, annual observance, I guess it's for you, Pat. Is this just a suggestion?
These were the dates that were put in from the city attorney in the very first draft. Different things that are recognized by the administrative office of the U.S. courts. And, you know,
But that's not suggesting that all of these would end up with banners on.
No,
Oh,
but
okay.
somebody could come in and say, well, we would like to have a banner for Constitution Day, or whatever, or Citizenship Day, or African American History Month. You know, the Human Relations Committee could present a proposal to that effect, or somebody from the outside. But it would have to be reviewed by the Human Relations Committee with a recommendation to the city manager, who would then make the final decision. And if he had any questions, he would come back to the city council.
I understand the city council has no more say in this after this.
no, he's not.
The city council has the final say in everything.
All the same.
Okay, because I thought you just said it'd go to the city manager.
He would make the initial decision, but if he felt uncomfortable, he would come back to the city council. It'd be like any other permit that the city issues for anything else. If there is an issue, it can come back to the governing board, and that would be the city council.
So,
Other-
let me go back to one thing that one of you two brought up in our meeting, about what happens when we get a future council on here that's
Yes.
off to the other side, whatever, and
Right.
they decide they want to do whatever, they don't have any guidelines, they don't have a policy, so they can do whatever they want.
No, as Councilor Cheney said, we would have a policy.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, but it'd be more strict than this. That's what Council Lippman is saying.
The answer would be no, unless you were to rewrite the policy.
Right.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
You have three choices, really four. POW, MIA, United States of America, State of New Hampshire, City of Laconia. Anything outside of that, it's no.
And so the other council would change that policy and be able
If
to
they-
do what they want.
But they can do that anyways.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
Right.
Not binding them.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor,
And he has, Councilor Cheney has a number of questions, as he said.
Bogart wanted to be recognized.
Yeah, Counselor Bogert, go ahead.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I've only got the document that was provided with our packet, on the website
yeah.
dated October 16th, as I refer to section 3 definitions, city-owned property, it said for the purpose of this policy refers to the property owned or controlled by the city of Laconia, including streets, sidewalks, and external flagpoles and light poles within the city. As far as I can read based on this document, it does not restrict any of the buildings and stuff, and I do apologize, I can only address what I see in front of me as what was released to me last Friday. So that's what I have to base my questions on, and in here, all it's doing is including light poles. It's not restricting the use of public buildings for the display of banners.
He doesn't have.
Again,
That's my question, that's what was discussed, was that we do not put banners on any of our buildings. And the only thing that was up for discussion was the light poles.
And I think that's still our intent.
And, yeah, and the copy that Councilor Bogert has is the version prior to our December meeting, and I'm sorry, you don't have the correct version, Mr. Bogert.
Okay. Based upon our conversations, some requests and changes and questions Councilor Cheney has, and all, I'd like to refer this back to our committee. We'll meet with the Human Relations Committee again and keep working through this.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like one more opportunity to work, because there's some, I was gonna bring up some things tonight that I wanted, hope that the rest of the council would consider changing. Some of them are
You're
kinda
suggesting this
technical.
should be tabled again?
I
Back
am,
to Katie?
just to give us time.
So it's a table, a motion to table by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Cheney. This is non-debatable. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
No.
5 votes to table. The item is now tabled and sent back to the committee, city ordinances.
We'll get it done, Mr. Mayor.
No? Let's move on to item number 22B, proposal to increase transfer station fees due to increase in disposal costs. Kirk, would you be so kind as to walk us through this last agenda item?
This is on the table, if you'd vote to take it off the table to discuss.
All right.
Yep.
Yep. Motion made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch, take it off the table. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes?
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
Item is now off the table with 6 votes in the affirmative.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Myself, the Public Works Director, have been working on this for a couple of months. The increase in the fees, this was brought to the council, and we asked that it get referred to the Public Works Committee. They met the other day to discuss this. And I think we were able to work through, and I don't want to speak for the chair, but I think we were able to work through the
Yes.
questions that came forward. With the increase of costs for the solid waste dumping, our estimated budget that we factored in for FY '24, we're gonna end up coming up short about $153,000. That net subsidy gets, it goes back to the taxpayer, so that it's taxpayer-funded subsidy. Historically, over the last 15-plus years, it's been about a 60-40 split. I know that's pretty close, what we had here, but it's been about a 60-40 split where the subsidy is the 40% to the taxpayer. The recommended increases on January 1, if this was to go through, and we'll be a little bit beyond that at this point, but only affects the outside of Laconia municipal solid waste. In doing so, it puts us right at that 40% subsidy and back into line with what was budgeted in the FY '24 budget. Moving forward into if this was to be approved, moving forward into FY '25, obviously it's early for these estimates, but we're making these estimates, a year and a half out. The recommended fees affect all areas of it, including our construction debris and our fees for bringing bags of trash up on your own into the transfer station, as well as our outside fees. Our estimate that we're pulling in now puts us back at that 60-40 split again. And, there's nothing that says we have to be at that, but we've been at that historical level for well over a decade. So we tried to keep around those numbers, and that was what was estimated on last year in the FY '24 budget. Public Works Committee worked through this, and again, not to speak for the chairman, but I think you recommended that this goes to the council for at least a public hearing.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We did concur.
Okay, so, right now, we've got a series of 3 motions left on this. Go right ahead. Would you like to speak first?
So I'll let you get the motions on the table.
Okay, so the item is off the table right now, but right now I'm looking for a motion to waive a reading of ordinance 2024-194-16, 194-24 relative to an increase in transfer station fees in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Just want to clarify, what is this on, putting the motion on the table, or is this approving the motion?
This is waiving the
This
reading.
is waiving a reading of the ordinance relative to the increase.
Thank you. Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The next motion, looking for a motion to move a first reading of ordinance 2024-194-16, 194-24, relative to an increase in transfer station fees. Don't all jump.
Yep.
Counselor Felch, thank you. Counselor Haynes, seconded. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Counselor Littman.
I'm going to vote yes to keep it moving, but I do want to just share some parting remarks here, which is whether the 60-40 split ought to be the policy that we go forward with, given what I anticipate are the budget challenges that the next budget may represent for this council, and, you know, why we should be picking up 40%. I guess the second thing is, I don't think we ever got to the bottom of what is the real cost of, on a totally loaded standpoint, and that's what I hope we would have gotten to eventually, but I think, you know, it's time to move it forward, but I still think there needs to be more work on this policy to make sure we're fully loading the cost of what it is and not subsidizing from the households to commercial haulers to any degree, honestly.
Counselor Susie.
Mr. Councilor Littman, I totally agree with you, I think, with the upcoming budget. And I know the discussion we had at Public Works Committee to the city manager and to the Public Works Director were to get those actual costs on the commercial side, okay? Because none of us want to subsidize the, especially the out-of-town commercial.
So we have a motion on the table and there's a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The last motion on this matter is a motion to schedule a public hearing on January 22nd, 2024, during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on the public hearing motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. I'd like to adjourn the city council meeting of December 26, 2023 at 8:25 PM.
Happy New Year, everyone.